All right, welcome to the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We've brought this podcast forward half an hour and then had half an hour of technical difficulties. So either the universe is trying to prevent the audience from hearing what might be the worst podcast of all time, or the demonic realm is preventing us from hearing the best podcast of all time. Hopefully it's the latter. How are you going, Baz?
Oh, you know what?
By the way.
Yeah, of 30 minutes of IT challenges, mate, we finally got here, and I agree with you. I hope that it's the latter. But look, we're ready to go, right?
Oh, mate, so many things happen, and look, whatever. But we're here now, and I'm ready for some interesting chats. And I've been looking forward to this one specifically, and the reason is we've got Ego, and look, before I get into this, tell us your role at Ego. For those who don't know you, some would have heard you on other podcasts, but what's your name, what's your role, and then I'll tell you why I'm excited.
Okay, all right. Well, Barry Crowhurst, General Manager of Shervon Australia. So Shervon Australia is a manufacturer and wholesaler of three brands, one of them being Ego. We have a couple of other power tool brands, which one has heritage, and that's Skill Power Tools, so more in that DIY type of market. And our third brand that we launched just early last year is called Flex, and that's a premium brand at a premium price. So that takes on the likes of the Festals and the Fines of the world, the Roots, Polishers. So very niche market, very specialist. So three brands, but the one behind me is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So yeah, that's the one that's definitely propelled forward at a rapid rate of knots.
And people love that it's the general manager talking, and it shows a respect for the listener to not send the intern or somebody like that and be like, I want to get involved in this, and I want to be a part of this. And so I think a lot of people really appreciate that, and that's some of the feedback I've heard online. Is that something you get as well?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I see a lot of positive posts regarding our involvement, our brand. And look, I take a bit of pride in that. I actually enjoy doing it. So, I reckon I spend more time on LMCA than the admin boys themselves. So, I'm on there 24/7. I enjoy it. I love watching the banter. I love getting the market feedback, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
You know what? I enjoy actually helping, the guys out, guys and girls. If they're going to have some challenges, we want to be there for them, but we also want to hear the good stuff as well. We've worked bloody hard to get the brand to where it is, and we're celebrating 10 years this year. So that's been a bit of a journey. It's been a real journey. So the brand itself, I've just returned from China, and last Sunday week we actually celebrated Ego 10-year global. So we were the second region to launch the brand in the world, right behind North America. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's been a bit of a journey.
Do you know? So I'll tell you why I was excited about this podcast. For the listeners out there, so this group called Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia, we call it LMCA. There's a few people who may not have heard of it. It's a Facebook group, and for the most part, it's actually one of the best groups I'm a part of on the internet. It's very respectful, and for the most part, I got to say for the most part. But you get a lot of other internet groups that it's just filth or just like grumpiness, but for the most part, people are there to help. But you get these posts, and one of the things I find about Ego, which I do not understand, I've got some theories, but I do not understand it fully, is that people, for whatever reason, love to hate the brand, and then there's some people who are absolute diehards, and they love the brand, and thank goodness, but they haven't quite gone to vegan stage of proselytizing yet. Where, like you're talking about the weather on the weekend and they slip in their Ego products and it's just like, shut up about the Ego. But there's people, they're not that bad, but there's people who love it and they really, really love the brand. And there's people who love to hate the brand. And it's such an interesting, like a social thing that's going on. And it's not about the products themselves that I'm interested in on that part of it. It's just, why do you think that people have such strong emotions, especially, and this is the most fascinating thing, people hate the brand and they've never tried or used or bought an Ego product. Where do you think this comes from?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Look, I've got some thoughts on it, but that's the world we live in. I mean, the world we live in is so diverse, and everyone's got an opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent. But that's
Yeah.
that's who we are. We're individuals, so we're going to have different tastes, different likes. We're going to hate certain things, but that's who we are. Look, Ego was launched in Australia in October of 2014, and we were the first brand to drive a high voltage platform.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make the product look aesthetically appealing.
Yeah.
We believe we achieved that with our Generation One, which really looks archaic now in comparison to what we've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
today. But we've brought to market a lot of firsts. We still today have a 56-volt battery design that is still unique. It's got an arc-shaped design. It's got a lot of intellect around that for performance and longevity. Um, but we've also been first to market with a lot of things.
Yeah.
We had 3 self-propelled mowers before our competitors did. We launched the first battery multi-tool system, the most powerful blower, the largest cut hedge trimmer, the first backward compatible ZTR. So we've got a history in our short life of being first to market. Now, it's all been domestic. We really only touched into commercial in 2018, and more recently in the last 2 months we've actually upgraded. So
Yes.
look, I think the commercial market have really been talking negative with some of our product because it's domestic. It's not designed for slashing, it's designed for maintenance, and those that are enjoying it have worked towards enjoying it. They haven't just picked it up and used it, they've come to learn it, trial it, work out what works well for them. So I guess they're the ones who talk positively, and those who've used it for a commercial with a domestic unit, maybe that's part of it. Again, we're all diverse. We're either going to love or not like it, one of the two.
Well, here's my theory because it lines up very closely with yours, and that is that people there's a lot of people who are what you would call this early adopters. So on one side of the spectrum, anything new, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, they want to give it a try. They love getting their hands on the brand new iPhone the first time it came out. And then you get the laggards, the people who lag behind, and it's like they're still playing. They've still Blu-rays, not Netflix. They're on CDs, not Spotify. Still, and I reckon because you guys were some of the first out there doing some of this kind of stuff, that there's a suspicious second half of that spectrum, and everyone's on different sides that were very suspicious for petrol stuff, and Ego kind of were the battery option. So I wonder if you copped a lot of hate from people who just didn't like the change, didn't like the battery stuff, and sort of lumped you in with that. And then a lot of these other brands that have come along since, well, you kind of were at the front, so you copped a lot of the flack, and they're kind of, it's a battery. Everyone's got battery now. Everyone's got a battery mower now. Everyone's got a battery blower now. My grandma's got a battery blower brand that she's been, whatever. You get the idea. And I wonder if you caught a lot of that flack. And then it just sort of, it's like, you're online, so you know that people love to hate Nickelback, and it's like Nickelback is supposed to be lame. But then in the same sense, tens of millions of people listen to Nickelback. So for those people, it's good. It's just that we love to hate them, and it's popular to hate it. And I wonder if there's a little bit of that. Early days, people didn't like battery gear at all. Ego were the most obvious one. They were at your mower shop. They were, available at lots of different places. And so people just love to hate it. And then you find people saying, oh, this product sucks. Oh, have you used it? No. That's my theory.
They're the ones that really fascinate me. But look, I think it's a good theory because when we did launch Ego back in October of 14, our strategy was to target petrol users. Why? Because there was really only 3 brands dealing with either 18 volt or 36 volt in a good OPE offering. So we were new to market, and it was all the power and performance of petrol without the noise, fuss, and fumes was our tagline. So we targeted a lot of different petrol machines, and I think it's a pretty good theory. And look, even till today, you're still going to hear people talking about how petrol still is better for them and it dominates, and it does. Petrol still dominates our category. We sort of estimate batteries still only anywhere between 25 to 28%. Anything with a cord,
Of the
which
market?
of the market, and
Yeah.
obviously in commercial, no one's going to be using anything with a cord. So the balance of that is petrol. So yeah, it still dominates. But when you got California announcing their legislation a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
I mean, it was a furor, right? Everyone's talking about that. There's no machine that can cope with it. So I think there's a little bit of uncertainty. Especially those that haven't truly given it a go. And I think once people do give it a go, they're actually, they're impressed with it. But again, they need to pick a machine that is going to meet their needs. If they're going to be slashing, we're not it. If they're going to be doing
Yeah.
maintenance, we're a great option. But we released the XP just a couple of months ago in the mower, and you've been seeing that on LMCA and even on other pages as well. And we're trying to meet the market expectation for those who do want to convert. And you're right. I think commercial is still very much in early adoption, whereas residential is probably more later in that early adoption, and
Yep.
probably getting close to early majority. So, but commercial's still got a long way to go, I think. So,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's horses for courses, isn't it? And
yeah.
it is. There were some comments on. I put a post up because I wanted to hear people's opinions, stir the pot a little bit before the podcast. But I asked ego haters and ego lovers why they came to their opinion, and there were some people on there. There was one in particular, and they will know who they are. I'm not going to name them, but they basically said, "I started out years ago and I bought some domestic ego stuff, admitting it was domestic, and didn't really like it. And then they bought something that was now the commercial stuff, and they've been converted. And I just think it's probably a bit of that. My father-in-law, this is about a year or so ago, he's got a serious back injury. And he had a chainsaw, and it was a petrol chainsaw. And you know what it's like whenever you leave a petrol chainsaw around for the summer because you don't use it because you don't need your firewood. And
Mhm.
it's a lot harder to start, and he's not got a good back. So he goes, I want a battery one. We went down together to the local mower shop and talked about the options and ended up getting him an ego one. And he loves it. It's fantastic. I think it was one of the cheapest ones you sold. Like
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't, it was, he had a deal that came with a bag and stuff at the time. This might have been 18 months ago or something now. But he absolutely loves the tool. And I don't know if that tool would be loved by someone who used it 8 hours a day. I can't remember exactly the model, but in that specific role, it's the right tool for the right job. And for him, and I don't understand people who just I can't understand why you would just criticize a brand as a whole that has how do you feel? Does it? You seem like a very confident person, water off a duck's back. But is there something else? Yeah. Do you get frustrated by it?
Oh, look, when I first started monitoring pages like LMCA, yeah, I took it personally because I've been part of the team that's built this business
Yep.
and built this brand up, and then to see that negativity, yeah, it did affect personally. And I remember one night I was on the dog and bone just responding for 3 hours, trying to have a casual beer, and I think I had one and a half within that 3 hours because I was just full on. But I come to learn to sort of take everyone's opinion on board, and that's where there's been a lot of learning. So if anything else, as long as it's constructive, bring it on. If it's just full on negativity, I'm just going to turn the page because, again, has the individual really used it? Is it the right tool for application? Is it residential that's been used for commercial? So there's a lot of negativity that can drive that, or sorry, a lot of variables that can drive that negativity. So as long as it's constructive, absolutely. We've learnt a lot in the last 2 years by being on these pages and listening to people. And I think we're better for it as a brand. We're better for it as individuals as well. So, but no, look, I don't take it personally anymore. I think I learned a lesson to just flip that page depending on the
Yep.
comment and not to really argue because people are going to be they're going to have their own opinions, and whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, we're not there to argue with them. We're simply there to support and learn.
All right. I reckon that's enough about the personal side. Let's actually get into the tools. A couple of episodes ago, I asked if people would be interested in purchasing a lawn care package that I designed. I'd had a couple of messages from people asking for that. I didn't think there would be too much interest. There was quite a bit of interest. So I've made a package, but it's not just a spreadsheet version that I talked about in that other podcast. It's actually a spreadsheet and a 1 hour plus video explanation going through every single little detail of the package or the program. And we go into exactly what fertilizers I use, exactly how much I apply, why I do that, how I think, how you would compensate for weather, what sort of wetting agents, kelp products, all that kind of stuff. When we mow, when we groom, when we aerate, different herbicides we use, everything is covered in that. If you're also a person who's interested in that, it's $73.50. You can blame the US exchange rate for that random number, but it's $73.50. On the Patreon, there's a link in the video description or the podcast description. And if you're the sort of person who loves this kind of podcast, you know that this whole series we're doing for Makers Month, it's the best way to support this is to jump on the Patreon and become a monthly member. There's a lot of work involved with these kinds of podcasts. I can't do it on my own, so I'm now getting people to help me with editing and things like that. And that comes straight from the Patreon. So if you're a Patreon, genuinely speaking, this podcast series is brought to you by you. I could not do this much work on my own. So thank you so much. Let's get back into the podcast. All right, so I've got the commercial series page in front of me for those who are listening. And what we're going to do is just go one by one through each of these products here. And now, Barry, you've had a huge hand in the developing of this sort of stuff. The first thing I want to ask you is, how much of this is Australian, or how much of the Australian conditions are being considered? I would imagine that like a blower is a blower anywhere in the world. But you know what I mean? Like, because you're blowing leaves. Leaves are the same everywhere. But mowers are a little bit different. Whip snippers are a little bit different. Maybe even hedge trimmers. So, like, how much of the Australian market does it come into mind when you're developing this kind of stuff?
I guess that's the beauty of our business now, right? That we've got a brand that's global. As I mentioned before, the US, they launched the brand in earlier 14. We were the second region in October. Europe followed in 15, and New Zealand was in October of 15. So being a global brand, we catch up often as a sales and marketing business, but we also take on board the needs of any market, whether it is residential or whether it is commercial. And here's a bit of a story. When we first launched our commercial backpack, with the commercial, so everything with the umbilical cord back in 2018, something we learned pretty quickly is that the commercial guys wanted anti-clockwise. Our business had never heard of that. We took that to business, and guess what? Now the rest of the world wants anti-clockwise inline trimmer for a commercial product. Residential, they don't know. They don't care as long as it trims their grass. So they don't have that tradition of, their application. They just want to get the job done. So, look, the Aussies have had a lot to do with what we've developed in terms of commercial. So, the range that we launched back in 18, it had the umbilical cord. It suited some individuals. Some are loving the backpack or even the backpack link because it gives them that additional runtime and taking weight out of the tool. So it works for some people, but it doesn't work for others. So we learned from that. It's like we knew that there was a demand for battery on board, hence the new range. So look, it took some time to develop it. But yeah, we've had a big hand in it. And coming back from China just a couple of days ago for 2 weeks, we had a lot more involvement this time around. It was pretty good. The global team was talking about commercial needs more than ever before.
That's awesome, because I think that it sounds to me that the technology and the desire maybe didn't match up 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like the possibilities that battery could have delivered, that there maybe it was possible, but the price point was way too high. And it's really cool now that there's that focus on the commercial, because the other thing, which you know all too well, is the market. You know, there's 25 million or so people in the country. It's, what is there, 17,000 or so actual contractors.
Yeah.
So if you got to make a product, you want to make a product to suit that. So to get to a point where the technology is there and the interest there, and you can make it financially viable, it's a very exciting time, you know?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And look, for us initially, the first generation that we launched in 14, it was all residential. You know, it was all about the economies of scale globally. So we rode on the coattails of North America in 2014. And something that the Americans do well is they know how to cut line. And generally, they won't cut it any lower than 30 mil, whereas over here, we want to scalp it.
No,
You
yeah.
know, we want to shave it down to as much as we can. But what we released in Australia was all down to 25 mil, and all the American stuff was starting at 38 mil. So we started modifying product for the Australian market very early. It just wouldn't have worked if we didn't. So commercial is no different. We've since launching in 2018, we've been listening, watching, and we've been able to go forward. So we're pretty excited with what we've just dropped in the market for commercial, but what's coming around is even more exciting.
Well, we would start to talk about mowers. Let's jump onto the mowers then. Let's move back to blowers and stuff later. I've got that on the screen, people. Now, is it this mower here that right now is considered the most suitable for the commercial market? I know there's so many options here, but which one would you like to focus on first? Because we'll move away from the domestic stuff, but that's one thing, is that's the benefit. You do have quite a range. Is that the one that we should focus on for now?
Absolutely. So the XP only dropped into the market about, early October. So the XP was released in the US a couple of years ago, and we'd seen the demand from the commercial because we had the standard select cut. And the standard select cut has done extremely well, and it's our number one sales driver by a long way. And we've come to learn where that market really is, and we come to learn it was a lot of commercial. Now, both are still domestic units that carry a 12-month commercial warranty, but the XP, the demand was there for a couple of years, but we had some challenges bringing it to Australia. It's not just a case of, well, if North America is doing it, we can just put it in a box and send it to Australia. There's a lot of certification. There's a lot of work that needs to go in to modify it as well. There's cost factors that come to that. And the economies of scales needs to make it viable. So it took us a long time to get it. We got there. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's been a lot of positive stuff on it.
I have, yeah.
In particular regarding this unit, because it is the most powerful battery self-propelled on the market today with 11.2 Newton meters worth of torque, I think it is.
11.3. So you lied, but
I lied, 11.3. All right.
You undersold it a little bit. I've got the stats in front of me, people. But, I mean, obviously, it's pretty good that you know off the top of your head. Now, what is the number one positive feedback you're getting from this? And the most interesting I'm hearing of is what's the positive interest from people who had the previous version or who had another battery style mower?
I think it's definitely the power, right? So the torque that this beast has, it's the torque. So it gives the commercial guys that ability to use it in longer grass. And those who are currently using the select cut standard, I've seen some images on many pages where I just cringe, but they're talking about how it's working. And yes, it's not going the full deck. It's going maybe 2/3 of the deck. Again, individuals are working out how to use it in maintaining, but also for slashing as well. So it's the power. It gives it greater runtime as well. So even though it's a more powerful unit, we're getting more efficiency out of it. So that's what we're seeing as the number one key feature.
What is the price point of this mower? We'll say without batteries.
Yeah, well, we only sell our mowers in kit. We actually tried, selling a mower as a skin, and that was our opening price point. and it was just a dead duck in the water.
Okay.
So everything we do with a kit. So in this particular unit, we've got this now available in either a 1 by 10 amp hour kit or one with 2 amp hour, 2 by 10 amp hours. We do the 2 by 10 amp hours with the commercial guys in mind because it's
Mhm.
they're going to be saving quite a bit. I think in this instance, they're saving close to $500 by buying it in the 2 battery kit form, and that retails at $1,999.
Mhm.
Now,
With the
bearing in
two kit,
mind, sorry,
the two kit there.
yeah, correct. That's with the 2 by 10s, and I'm just doing a bit of cheating at the moment. But the 2 by 10s, for argument's sake, they retail at $549 each alone. So
Okay.
there's $1,100 in battery, plus you got the supercharger as well, which is another $200. So you can do the maths as to what the skin looks like.
Well, a lot of people who are using or selling battery mowers, the number one thing they talk about is that the battery is also the fuel. Well, not quite exactly. You do have to charge it, but you're doing a lot of your fuel costs up front because the amount of cost it takes to charge the battery is very low. And so to have the sale price with batteries and charger, it's not that much more than what a HRU 216, which most people would have experience with, which is the Honda self-propelled petrol mower that's been around for 20 years, well, in different forms for that time. I mean, I don't know what that is top of my head, but 1,700. So something like that, $200-$300 difference is pretty close. Is that
Yeah,
deliberate there?
yeah, it's part of our strategy. Look, I guess our strategy all along is to be price competitive, not only to our competitors but to the market itself. And again, we targeted petrol, so
Yep.
we still take on board what's available in petrol and what the volume drivers are, and of course we want a piece of that market as well. So we do target it. We look at everything. I think you made the point before that there's a lot of different players now coming into battery. We still consider ourselves as battery experts. Why? Because we're 100% focused on battery. We're not a power tool brand that's got a great range of 18-volt power tools, and this is an offset to that. We're not a petrol brand of OPE that is still focused on that because it's still dominant in the market and they're getting into the OPE. So we focus on this 100%, and we do a lot of testing against the petrol to
Yeah.
ensure that we try and either meet or exceed that of petrol performance and quality.
I don't know if this is going to come to Australia, this one here, but I know a lot of people would have been watching Equip Expo and seeing the stuff. And your brand announced a 22-inch, if I'm correct. Tell me if I'm wrong or not, but
You're right.
22-inch with, is it a metal? Well, you tell me about this.
Aluminium deck.
Aluminium deck. And it's considered, a very interesting mower for a lot of people. Is that going to come to Australia at some point? And what is the news on that?
All right. Well, the news on that from Equip was all positive. And look, I have seen prototypes in the past, but coming back from China just in the last couple of days, I got to see it in the flesh. I got to use it, and all I'm going to say, mate, is that I'm pretty excited by it. But we will now be bringing that forward here into Oz. So I
All
won't
right.
give you that time frame at this stage because we're still working towards it, but we're attempting to expedite it to market because there's a demand for it now. It was announced at Equip. The amount of inquiries that we've received through PMs and emails, it's like, shit, we're going to jump in this. We're going to jump in this baby now.
Yeah.
We're pretty excited by it.
Because you would say that this one that we're looking at here, the Select Cut, you mentioned before very briefly that you would still kind of consider this one domestic, even though it has a 12-month warranty. Is that right?
So domestically, it has a 5-year warranty because
Right.
it's used. Look, it's used for 4 months of the year, maybe once a week, once a fortnight. in the off season, it's put away and it might be brought out occasionally. So it doesn't get the same use as the commercial guys use
Yeah,
it
of
for
course.
income because it's used all day, every day, right? Or most days at least. So that's
Mm.
why we attach a 12-month warranty because it is still a domestic model. But certainly anything that we do commercially will carry a 2-year warranty. And that includes the mower we just spoke about.
Fascinating. I'm very interested by that because you do. I wonder if people have, like the experiences that they've had with the ego stuff, like you said, the clockwise, trimmer and domestic stuff and things not used in their right market. I wonder how many people will be coming around when that comes out, and the laggards we talked about before, the people lagging behind. I wonder how many, because I'm seeing them getting converted by in the comments and things like that by some of the more commercial or the outright commercial stuff that you've announced
Yeah.
coming out. I wonder what that mower is going to do for you as a brand. You were excited. I could see in your facial expressions as you were talking about it. There's some passion there for it.
I was like a kid in a candy store, mate. I was like hip and shouldering people off that unit just to get to it. It's look the cut, the performance, the quality. We talk about the Select Cut being our best product that we've ever produced. Well, this is going to kill it. From a commercial standpoint, the commercial boys will be jumping on this rather than Select Cut, but that'll come down a price point as well. And we're yet to commercialise it for the Aussie market and the New Zealand market for that matter. But we're pretty excited by it. It's the power that this thing has got is going to exceed that of petrol.
Wow. What sort of numbers? I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers and I love business. All right. And I've talked to many people about, I love hearing the behind the scenes stuff. So even if you and I are the only people interested in this, you got to weigh up how many sales you can get before you can even justify bringing something over. It's the economies of scale stuff, right? And I totally understand that because we talked about we had a few podcasts ago we had an Australian invention on called the Monty composter, which is like completely irrelevant to what you do from a tool point of view. It's a little thing you stick in the soil as you're composting that gives you updates, and it's an Australian invention. And the lady I was talking to, Ash from there, she told me how expensive it was to make this thing. It was $1 million in research over 5 years, and there's opportunity for it in commercial stuff. But we went behind the scenes a little bit, and I loved it. And she said that the injection mold, right? And I don't know if you know all these numbers and stuff. I'll get to the question in a minute. But the injection mold for this one little tool, which is maybe the size of, I don't know, this water bottle here, it was $70,000 for the injection mold. So you got to think about that. How many does she have to sell? That's one tool. I look at this and I go, wow, how many little parts and pieces and things and all that sort of stuff. And I can totally appreciate it costs a hell of a lot of money just to get something to the demos and this and that. And how much does it take before you can even get it to market? So I can totally understand that. Do you have a number in mind that you go, we need these many sales to make it viable with any product?
Yeah, look, we do, but it's also about having the right offering. So, sometimes it becomes a balance game. You might sell, hypothetically, you might sell 1,000 of one, but you might only sell 200 of the other. And it becomes a balance, but it needs to become a full offering. And whilst we believe we've now hit the market with the right commercial tools, we're still missing a commercial mower. And then there's other products beyond that we know we're going to need to do to become a true commercial brand. We believe we've hit all the right notes with the residential, but look, sometimes, and here's a story for you, the 3,000 watt power inverter that's been in the US for 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted that like the same year that the US launched that, because we're outdoors type of people, right? We camp, we fish, we boat, all of that. This 3,000 watt inverter would have killed all the petrol generators because of the noise that they produce, right? But it was going to be over 7 figures just to convert that into
Oh
a
my
US plug,
goodness.
just a US plug. So the economies of scale was, and unfortunately, we didn't have Europe on board as well. So they would have helped us with the economies of scale to
Yep.
turn it from a 110 into a 240.
Bloody
So
Europe. Oh.
bloody Europe, they struggle to get out their front door, let alone go and camp under a
Yeah, it's a bit
gum
too
tree. But
cold.
yeah, correct. So that's one of our greatest disappointments, that we could have brought something that was so innovative and in high demand for our market. And you're right, even modifying our mowers from a 30, 38 mil height of cut in the US down to a 20 or 25, it's not cheap. But
No.
fortunately, our market expectation is the same as Europe, so we work hand in hand there.
So the 22-inch, how low is that going to go? Do you know yet? Are you
It's
able? So
It'll go down as low as 25. Anything below that, you are going to affect significant runtime,
yep.
and that's not what we want to deliver to the commercial market. And that's another reason why we only do kits and not in skins, is because we don't want to see guys putting a 2.5 into a 21 inch and then wonder why it's only going to run for 10, 15 minutes, right? So
Yep.
this is part of the education process. This is the right product, or this is the right battery to meet the needs or the market expectations of this particular product.
Let's stay on lawnmowers for a second. You've got ride-on stuff here. Is this, from my understanding, is kind of the same as the other mowers that you've got in that, or the mowers that you have right now, is that they're kind of commercial, but they're really residential. So
They are 100% domestic.
So, but I see people using them in a
Absolutely.
commercial. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing because it shows there's the market there for it. And I totally get this because as a contractor myself, most of my work is residential stuff. And a lot of us will only use the ride-on for certain aspects of a job. So maybe you've got a commercial site where certain larger areas need to be cut by this, and you need to walk behind to fit through some gates here and there or something. So you don't necessarily need 8 hours of literal runtime in every scenario. And you kind of are using it in the same fashion that a domestic person might use it, other than it being on a trailer and bouncing around. How have you found those in the commercial setting, warranty wise, and all that stuff?
Yeah. Look, well, let's talk warranty. I mean, our rate of return is minimal. And we know that some of them have been used for slashing, but that they are true 100% domestic models. Now, you talk about using these on commercial sites, and we're hearing that they are getting used around schools, retirement villages,
Yep.
cemeteries. So where noise is a real issue, these don't produce the noise. Something that we learned on the ZTRs very early in the US was people were complaining about the rattle of the deck.
Ah,
Yeah. And you know why they were hearing this rattle? Because
because
they
they
didn't have
couldn't
a
hear
screaming
the
petrol engine
yeah.
screaming behind them. So we learnt, and we put rubber absorbers on, and now you can't hear it. So, these are great for larger areas where noise pollution is a real challenge. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the commercial guys now being forced into battery because they're being told, don't come on site with petrol, it's too noisy. We've got the two 42 inches. They're both a press deck. We've got the option of either the 42 lap or the 42 e-steer. So, it drives like a car, but it turns like a zero turn. But now we've got the 52-inch fab deck as well. So we know that the commercial market's going to want to jump on that. We're still putting a 12-month commercial warranty on it as well. So, but so far so good. But what we're hearing too, Luke, is that some of the guys who are bought into it have had to slowly learn the speed in which they use it and the blade speed, depending on the application, to get the longevity to hit, some of the larger acreages, for argument's sake. And we've seen those guys talking about it, and that's been great.
I think shout out to Gary Ashton from Aussie Lawn Stars. He's had a few conversations with people who've got them. Their name escapes me right now. But there are examples of that where people are using it. And I do find it interesting that there's just it's a domestic machine, but it can be used commercially if respected, I guess, and used in the right spirit of the tool. Is there anything coming out, or is there possibility in our market for anything to come out that would be a true commercial ride on in the next 3 weeks? No, but but in the foreseeable future.
All right, so like you sound like me when I was in China, mate, because everything I wanted in commercial, I said I wanted it yesterday.
Yeah.
The Chinese found that funny, but yeah, there's a lot of things that is on how our product road for the next 3 years, but a lot of conversations around what we needed to prioritize for that commercial market. But what we won't do is we won't compromise the testing of the product. We've been able to establish a brand in 10 years that does drive performance, quality, all of the above, but we will never rush anything to market. We'd rather be second, third to market than always be first, and more so with the commercial, knowing that commercial are using these tools for income. And if they don't have a secondary and they're only relying on the primary, then if they don't have that tool, they don't have that income. So, yep, there's a lot of cool commercial stuff coming out, not so much in the next 3 weeks, certainly over the next 12 months.
4 weeks.
But 3.5. But beyond that, mate, it's bloody exciting. It really is. It's just amazing how a business can move forward so quickly.
You get excited by this stuff. Like you're obviously in the right role, aren't you? You love it. You get excited. You can see it on your face. For those who are watching on YouTube, you love the innovation and the change and things, growing, and it's good to see.
Well, yeah, I enjoy my job, mate. I set this business up back in 2013, and we've built a team that's contributed to making this a brand. 10 years ago, there was no such thing as ego. There was no such thing as anything over 36 volts. So we've been able to establish a brand in the residential market that's now, sort of vertically taking us to the commercial market. And we've learned a lot, but we're on our 4th generation mower. We've got this big 1300. I don't know which way I'm going. 1300 cube.
There it is.
Right. So that is getting momentum in the market, and it's getting talked about. So it's been a pretty cool ride for all of us involved to establish a brand and see the positive feedback that we receive. It's extremely rewarding, mate, and we strive towards that.
I've got to ask, as a West Australian, and we're talking about lawnmowers, right?
Right. Not football.
You do have a cylinder mower, sort of, right? Yeah. It's, if I believe correctly, is it Allet?
It is Allet.
It's an Allet cylinder mower. I should have get the photos. I'll type in Allet Ego.
Yep.
Which might just be somebody's there. There we go.
Yeah.
I think this is the USA side, right?
Yeah. But that's the beast.
Now, is there possibility? Oh, this change. Oh, here's a big boy right there, the Sports Pro.
Yeah, that's
Where
nice.
is that one?
There we go. Yeah.
What is the possibility of this making Australian shores at some point?
It already has.
It has, does it? Where do you get this from? How do I not know about this?
No, so what we do is we struck up an agreement with Allet. Allets are the experts in cylinder mowers. It's not something that we could produce and test in the market in the time frame for us to go to market or our desired market. So we were approached, and if you look at this unit that's on screen right now, you'll notice that the handle design is that of our mower, and then the power head. So you'll see the battery diagonally inserted. So that's our power head as well. So we brought the two together. Now, it wasn't a cheap unit. They brought in 500 units. It was through a distributor here in Oz. And my understanding is they sold them out pretty quickly.
Wow, that's pretty good. 500 units for a cylinder mower, which is a niche. But, fascinating. I've wondered about... I've wondered about it because I didn't realize that Allet was that, they're very popular in the UK.
Yeah,
right? Very popular. I
very.
didn't realize that they were here.
Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. Yep. And there's many ego supporters out there that, in fact, I think Noosaville Mowing, they've got a couple of these units. They had a couple of petrols. It was the only petrol units they had, but the team up there, as soon as they were aware this was becoming available, I think they jumped straight on it and pre-ordered.
Now, my guess would be, being a cylinder mower man myself, is because the cylinder mower doesn't cut by speed; it's the blades and the sharpness of the blades in contact with each other.
Yep.
My guess would be you would get pretty good runtime because you wouldn't need to run it at full berries all the time, and the type of work you're doing is the lower maintained,
That's right.
type of work. So, I wonder, do you know off the top of your head what the runtime is like compared to the rotary?
No, not off the top, mate. And again, these were sold in Australia without batteries and chargers. So really, really
Yeah,
targeting
that's
existing ego users. So that kept the price down. I think that was still 4.5 grand roughly. As I said, I mean, this was over 12 months ago, and I've had a few beers since then. So yeah, look, it certainly sounds like it's meeting market expectations. We're not hearing any negativity on it. So, you've got the cylinder expert, you've got the battery expert coming together, and they've been able to produce this machine. Is it something that we're looking at going forward? There's many things on the product road that will take priority, and commercial is going to be it. So,
yeah.
but my understanding too, it's only used by the wise men in the West, and it's very minimal elsewhere. So, again, the Western Australians want to be different to everyone else. So,
I
sorry,
think you
mate.
mispronounced the word better there. You said it as if it was different. No, you meant to say better.
Better.
That's all right. I'll feel correct. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's a joke. I do think that
Of
people
course.
overseas are doing fantastic stuff.
Look, I
Let's get
guess.
into. Yeah,
Sorry,
you
mate. I
go.
was just going to say, all jokes aside, and that's what we should do as Aussies. But all jokes aside, as I said, Noosaville Mowing, I believe they've got two of them. So it is happening along the east coast, but definitely it's more preferred by the west coast for that type of product. So again, the economies of scales versus
Yeah, of course.
other commercial product, we're definitely focusing on.
It's super niche. If you're spending four
Yeah,
and
it
a
is.
half grand on a walk behind mower, no matter what size it is, whatever it is, you really got to think about that before you can work out whether or not there's a return on investment for anybody.
Of
You
course.
know.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
that's that. Let's get into your actual commercial range, because this is the stuff that you said is it's fairly new. I know some of it's come out at different points, so it wasn't all released at one hit, was it?
It was actually, yeah.
Was it?
We released when I say the full commercial range. So really, I guess what you got on this page here,
Yep.
all the battery on board stuff. So yeah, as you scroll through,
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, so everything you just went up the first half a dozen lines, that was all released in August this year. So
Okay.
again, we learned in 2018 with our backpack commercial, which is 1568, 1568 watt hours, 28 amp hour. We knew that it was going to give all day, everyday runtime. But yes, you're putting a 9 kilo
Yeah.
backpack on, and some are fine with it, others are not. So again, it comes down to the application. But from there, we were probably ahead of our time, but we acquired a backpack business out of Germany, and that's how we were able to get speed to market, but without
Right.
truly knowing what the commercial market was. So we were trying to enter it early before the market was ready. So obviously, since then, our learnings were or are that it needs to be on board. But the other option we give is for those who do have a desire for using a 12 amp hour battery on
Yep.
their back as opposed to on the tool, is the backpack link. And many are now starting to talk to it because, again, we learned from a residential model that was being used in commercial and what the commercial guys were saying in terms of harness and comfort, perspiration and clips and all of that. So we learned all that and we were able to produce a commercial unit.
Yep. Some of us are sweaty boys and have those straps on.
Initially, but I think you'll find now the material we use, mate, it breathes pretty well.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And I'll even bring up, the big fella, BJ Wallace. He's used it in the past, and he talks positively about it. So,
Man,
uh,
I sweat like a pregnant nun, and it's one of those things where if I'm using a sprayer on my back, like I wear black as part of our uniform, which is not great for heat, but it does cover up the sweat. Nobody knows. But if I'm using a sprayer for a long time on a warmer day, then my back is just sticking, my shirt sticking to my back.
you know what
And
you said.
yeah, you go.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay,
Your
I was just saying, like,
perspiration,
I
keep
wonder
going.
if a lot of people are comparing their experience with a knapsack to an actual harness, because I wouldn't have thought that you could have modified that. But if you do, not that I think about it though. That's the thing. I don't think about whether or not a strap could be breathable or not. I just think they're all the same.
Yeah.
So it might be an interesting thing for people who are like me and need to drink a lot of water because it all comes out of our pores during the day. What were you going to say
All
before?
I was going to say is you just need an Ego 45 centimeter misting fan in tow behind you, and maybe that'll overcome it. We only just launched that. We only just launched that. Shit, that was August as well. Now let's talk footy. I'm not a Collingwood supporter, but
Good. I
I
don't
think
care.
we had something to do with Collingwood's win for the premiership. Because if you have a look on the bench, the Ego fan was keeping the boys cool on that 28th
Right.
day. And then we had two of them in their change room. So if anyone from Collingwood's listening, yeah, we're taking the credit.
I'm a West Coast supporter, and the only grand final that Collingwood's in that I remember is 2018. So,
But no, look, the fan is another one of those, market first in terms of size, built-in misting fan, and yeah, wait for what's next.
they're fun little things. I like if you've already got the battery, and some of those things, like you've got a light on you right now, a work light that you're using to make your elegant face more visible to the world. But
It is. It's. I've got it on low setting too, and it's still blinding me. So
but you do, you
yeah,
look well lit, and you know what? Some
it's on.
people do this in a dingy room, and it makes it more work for us editing. But anyways, let's talk about your actual commercial. Look,
Let's do
let's
that.
start with each. We'll go through each one. I will spend more time on the ones that are of real interest, and I think that's the handheld blower, the new
Yep.
whippersnipper. That's the ones that are really talking. But let's start with this backpack blower. Number one thing people are going to ask about blowers is what are their runtime? And my guess is you've probably made this backpack blower because it's not, your handheld is so powerful that this one isn't too much more than it if I'm remembering the stats correctly, right?
Yeah, you're right. So the handheld, the most powerful we have in handheld is 1300 cube. Again, it's a domestic unit, but because of what we experienced with its baby brother in the commercial market, we decided to bring that out with 2x5 amps to keep the price down, deliver greater value, and with the commercial guys in mind. So, and that strategy has worked extremely well. The new backpack, so it's only a couple of months old in the Aussie market, but look, this is peak power, so you can buy it either in skin or you can buy it in kit form as well. But yeah, look, it's 1360 cubes versus our handheld at 1300. But it's got some pretty good push force at 26 newtons. So, and again, we considered the functionality, we considered the comfort. And obviously Australia is a hot environment. So again, we've considered all that for comfort.
Do you know off the top of your head what the runtime trigger time is? And obviously, most people are not full holding the trigger down the whole time, so it's not a fair reflection of how long you could actually use it for. But do you know that stuff off the top of your head?
Yep. So look, based on the 2x10 amps that we provide in kit
Mm-hmm.
form, that'll give you up to 60 minutes on high. Now it'll give you a lot more runtime on low. But if you go using turbo as well, you might get 20, 30 minutes out of it, depending on how you're using it. Excuse me. And this is where I think the commercial guys are getting smarter. That they're not just using turbo full time now. They're actually using the power, whether it's variable speed trigger or whether it's dial, and we've got lock-on dials as well. But they're getting smarter about how to use it to extend the runtime and really maximize that push force
Yep.
for their application. So, but yeah, up to 60 minutes with 2x10s on
What's
on
the what's some of the best feedback you're getting about this unit?
Yeah. Okay, so from a weight point of view, I guess when you look at backpack blowers in comparison to petrol, they're generally weighing 10 to 11 kilo when they're fully
Yep.
loaded, right?
Yep.
So this type of unit is weighing around that 9.5 kilos, so you're getting a little bit less weight, but over a longer time, it becomes lighter rather than a petrol unit, but you haven't got the screaming motor behind both your ears,
Sure.
right? So you've got noise pollution. It's the power. It's equivalent to a 60 cc petrol engine, for argument's sake, with what we're offering. So there's a lot more optimization in the aesthetics and the technology we put into it. So everything now is at your fingertips. So you've got an LCD screen as well that will tell you about your
Oh, nice.
your air volume and your battery as well, so that way you don't have to check behind your back.
Yeah, can I scroll Instagram at the same time, or is that's a future development coming out
No, who knows?
on the LCD screen?
Well, funny you should bring up IoT connection. You just never know.
Well, no, the technology is moving so fast. Let's talk about the 45 centimeter line trimmer. Now, 45 centimeter is not the length of the line trimmer. Okay, people, it's the length of the cutting aspect of it. Can you imagine? It's like, do you remember? I don't know if you ever watched. What's the movie with Ben Stiller, and he's a runway model, and they show him a thing, and he goes, "Was this made for ants?"
Yeah,
What's the movie
I do
called?
know the movie. I do know. Yeah, and he's got the '80s hairstyle, and
He's got the Magnum look. How can I not remember? I've got the whole movie script in
Zoo-
my head. I can't remember.
Zoolander?
Zoolander. That's it.
That's the one.
And he sees a model of a building, and he goes, "Is this made for ants?" Because he doesn't understand the model. It's not a 45 centimeter long trimmer. It's
No,
the cutting diameter of it.
you betcha.
And look, that's longer than average. And a lot of people were frustrated or get frustrated by a demo. No, what's the word? A homeowner style, which is a little bit shorter. This is made for the commercial. What does 1600 watts mean? It says,
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the high efficiency brushless motor, if anything else. So, being able to really tackle high torque as well. So, if it is going to be used for brush cutting, guess what? You're going to be able to use it. So, but what we've also taken on board, and something that's common with all of our commercial now, is that we've gone with the carbon fiber shaft. So, we're taking
Right.
weight out and we're putting durability in. And that's quite unique to our brand, that you'll find on
Yeah.
most of our commercial now, especially the new range. But with the trimming side of it, yeah, it's 45 centimeters. It's 7 centimeters bigger than our last commercial at 38. But now we've given the guys the ability to choose line between 2.4 and 3 mil. So, yep, if they want to go out slashing, they're going to have the motor that's going to be able to handle that. And already in the early stages, the feedback we've seen has been huge. It's been extremely positive, and everyone's talking about it. So that's pretty cool. But now you've got a 3-speed selector. So again, if you want to tip it up for edging, and if you want to, I don't know, trim around the daisies and wind back your speed, or if you want to build it up,
Awesome.
we're trying to give the user as many options as possible on a tool, and we've certainly been able to achieve it on this bad boy.
3 mil, the difference between 2.4 and 3 mil for cutting something thick is night and day. And you will find that a lot. Yeah, I mean, not that I've tried everything out there or anything, but that for the ability to do that in batteries is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing about this, which is I've made this mistake before when buying or trialing any sort of battery thing. You chuck on the biggest battery because you want the biggest runtime, but it doesn't mean the tool is balanced or easy to use. And sometimes you find that you're better off, say, buying 2.5 amp hours rather than 1.5 amp hour, because you can charge them in rotation, and so have one on the go and then one on the whippersnipper, and one being charged, and you got a lighter machine lasts you at the same time as one. What, in your opinion, having used this in your hands, or what feedback are you getting, is the right size battery for the balance of the machine?
Yeah, look, we've seen a mixture of both 5 and 7.5. The
Right.
7.5 is obviously going to give you a longer run time. So even with the 5, it's going to give you up to 60 minutes, depending on the speed that you're using, right? And what your application is. So you're going to get a greater run time out of the 7.5. But yeah, a lot of the boys we've seen have been talking about a great balance on the 7.5. But then if you want to go and throw a 10 and 12 and get the backpack link, you have that option as well. And that's the beauty of what we've done is we're giving choice to everyone, depending on their strength, depending on their comfort, depending on their application. So take your pick, 5 to 7.5. You're going to get some reasonable runtime, trigger time too, right?
Yeah. Well, what is the runtime? Let's say, well, let's go with 5, because let's just go lighter for the sake of it. Roughly what someone could expect. We're
Up to
talking.
six.
Let's.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Up
go.
to six, up to 60 minutes on the low speed, which has got 3,500 RPM.
And if you think about, when I think about a day worth of mowing, 60 minutes of trigger time, if you're doing maintained stuff, which is what the low setting would probably be, that would get you a fair chunk through the day, if not all the way through the day, if you're not doing too much there.
Especially with trimming too, right?
Yeah, well, it just depends. It depends on the growth and everything as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, look, your question before about the 1600 watt, again, we're targeting, well, we're trying to understand what's driving the petrol market. So, what do we need to do to be an option for petrol to battery conversion? So, we compare this to a 35cc petrol engine.
Yeah, I can see. I saw that written down there. So, yeah,
Yeah, well, there
interesting.
you go. It's on the page, right?
Yeah, as you're talking, I realized that I could have said that. What would you say? Now, what I would say as well with this, because I think the feel is so underrated. Like, you talk about to people about, like we talked about with the straps before. I didn't realize that you had thought about breathable straps, and I kind of just, no matter what brand, have rejected the idea of a backpack because I'm a sweaty boy. But there's a feel stuff now with the whippersnipper or the line trimmer. As an Aussie, everything whippersnipper. What the hell? All you brands that sell them in several countries, with all your weed whacker or whatever terminology. But with the whippersnipper there, you can go to an ego dealer and put one in your hand and chuck some batteries and just feel what suits you, right, on that, and just get a feel of it. Is that right? You can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, all our products are available. That depending on the store, they may not keep the range that you're looking for or the product that you're keeping for, but it can certainly be ordered in. Look, we're the market at the moment. Given the timing that we've launched and getting into store, we're still waiting on some orders for stores to put in store, and we're slowly making that way. But we certainly have got focus on it. So whether it be a national distributor or an independent, it's certainly available. And
Let's talk,
again, Luke, we're quite selective on who our dealers are as well, um, especially for the commercial market.
let's talk briefly about the straight shaft edger. This is a metal bladed edger for those who are listening. I don't think people are going to care too much about this because, for the most part, edging is pretty same across the board. The number one care they're going to worry about is really, in my opinion, now I could be wrong here, and tell me if you're getting any other feedback, but I guess the number one thing I'd be worried about is how long is this going to last in a day? And doing maintained lawns, am I going to be able to economically get through a day with this kind of bit of tool?
Yep. So look, this has got a smaller motor by 100 watts, but we still class it as a 25cc petrol engine. So, but still with a 5 amp hour battery, we claim that you'll get up to 60-minute runtime. And again, it's got a 2-speed selector. So again, you can change that setting depending on your application. Either go hell for leather or extend your runtime depending on what you're doing. So. We were a little skeptical about this, but again, this was one of these products. It's like, well, if we're going to have a real commercial offering, this needs to
Yep.
be part of it. And what helped us to make that decision is the amount of edger attachments we sell to the multi-tool.
Yeah.
So, and we seem to think that a lot of the purchase of multi-tools is the commercial market, and again, it's a domestic model, but we see that volume, and we had to give it a crack, and we have, and we're glad we have, because the feedback on this also has been pretty good. The power that it delivers, the balance, performance, all of that.
My guess is that most people don't use a straight shaft edger for overgrown stuff too often, right? Because most people, the majority of their business would be regularly maintained jobs, and every now and then they go through something. And, when you get them really bad, you're having to get a shovel out. Like I watched some of Tim the Lawnmower Man's videos. I don't do that type of work anymore. Well, on very rare occasions when somebody new signs up to a package and just happens to be overgrown. But I wonder if, looking back on that, if many people are going to use that, they probably understand that it's going to have a shortened battery life. But what could they expect from trigger time on full berries in something that's really thick, and we'll say 5 amp hour? What, just roughly, I know that this is a specific thing, but what would they expect on that?
Yeah, good question. I guess again, we're working on maintenance, and that's why we quote up to 60 minutes on 5 amp. I guess like anything, Luke, the more heat you pump into a battery, the less runtime you're getting out of it. So will it halve it? Will it be 2/3? That depends, and it also depends on the application too. So, or the user.
Yeah.
Are they rushing it? Are they taking their time with it? There's a lot of variables that will affect battery runtime. What sort of environment are they in? Are they in a cold day, hot day, warm day? What was it like pre-application? What do they do with it post-application? And I'm talking the battery, of course. So a lot of those variables come into your runtime, and it's pretty hard to put a number on a specific application, and that's why we generalize it based on testing. And a lot of it is, that maintenance, if anything else.
Let's jump onto the hedges. You've
Oh, yeah.
got several options throughout this range, including telescopic.
telescopic.
You've
Yep.
got, so let's not spend too much time talking about the power, because most of the time with hedge trimmers, if you want to cut through something thick, you really should be using a lopper or a chainsaw or something like that, right? What
Yeah.
people care about, as far as what I understand, there's 3 things they care about. One is the blade speed for tighter things or smaller things like diosma. The other thing is the quality of the steel in case something gets nicked. And then the last thing, which is more a Luke thing than anything else, is if my employee or, myself, but usually it's my employees, do something stupid with it and, it breaks a blade or it, they cut some wire in a fence or something like that, how easy and accessible is it to change the blade? So let's go one at a time. What is the blade speed like? Because I know that on the more domestic models, people have had complaints about that from Ego.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luke, that was one of our key learnings on the telescopics, and even the previous hedge trimmers we've had within our range was blade speed. So we shared that with R&D in China some time ago, especially for the commercial market, and that's why I couldn't wait any longer for these 2 babies to come out. So you've got the short pole, and then you've got the longer pole. I think that's just underneath it near the brush cutter there. I knew that these were going to not only meet the commercial expectation, but it was going to exceed the expectation. Why? Because now we're offering 3 speeds. So, but some of our previous hedge trimmers were 2800, 3200, and we knew that wasn't quite hitting it. So, with the 3 speeds now, we've got 3200, 36, and 4000 SPM. And we know that around that 3.5, it's hitting the need. But now we're giving you the option again. And that's the feedback, is they're well balanced and the right speed.
Do you know what I know this is quite a unique question. I'm going to click on the product just to see if it's in your own stats. But do you know what type of steel is being used or how hard it is on these blades?
Yeah, look, they are hardened steel. They're a laser cut blade with 3 sharpened edges as well. So,
yes.
Yeah, they've got to be. If we're going to put anything on it from a commercial aspect, it needs to be hardened steel. So also part of what we consider is the serviceability thereafter
Yes.
as well. So knowing that you blokes might want to, and girls, sorry, that you may want to have a spare blade in case you do bend it or hit wire or whatever it might be, that you can actually swap them over or grease them up or whatever you may need to do. It's got to be serviceable.
Now that's a little cap on the ends as well. If I'm understanding correctly, that will stop the blades from the articulating from hitting the ground. Is that right, or hitting a wall or something
Yeah,
like that?
well, it's a blade tip protection, so it's really about sort of protecting it by fences and walls. So,
Yeah.
if you are getting into a hedge that is below, your fence height, then you can run along the fence rather than having a blade that's going to be exposed to it and end up damaging it more than anything else. But yeah, I mean, look, I've seen guys use them along concrete paths as well. So it's a blade protecting.
Well, I'll tell you a story. I have some photos. I've shown this on a podcast for somebody else, but we had back in the day. I bought some steel petrol hedge trimmers, and we'd had them for a while. And some employees were doing some hedging on the vertical edge, and the blade was going straight down. It didn't have a cap protector like that. Hit the concrete. The blades were warm, completely warped. I could almost fit my pinky finger in the gap. That's how badly it was warped. And it's kind of stuff like that where I actually bought them because at the time they were some of the lightest hedge trimmers, and I thought, look, whatever. I know that they were the cheapest ones that still sold, and I didn't have high expectations for the quality of them. But looking back on it now, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you just spend more money on the commercial blades that have the stopper on the edge of them? Because that stuff happens. Maybe if you're the owner operator, you have more care because you bought the piece of kit. But having had employees for many, many years now, it's kind of just no brainer if you're going to be putting it in the hands of somebody who didn't pay for it.
It's the little things, right? So we're trying to think about all applications for commercial, and if it adds a little bit of cost on, but yet it prevents your experience, then guess what? We win. We all win.
Let's talk about some chainsaws. Again, there's a full range of and also we didn't talk about the handheld trimmers. Oh, what I should ask actually, back on the trimmers, sorry, hedge trimmers for one more second. Are the blades the same across these commercial ones, or are they different on the handheld and the telescopic and the blah blah?
All right. So when we talk commercial, yes. So
Awesome.
it's a dual blade action. So you're getting a lot more efficiency out of it. And look, the quality of the blade on the domestic is less, and that's why there's a difference in price point. But
Yeah.
they are still a hardened steel, and they're still laser sharpened. But yeah, they're a different blade operation. So
Do you know? Sorry, do you know off the top of your head what the replacement cost for a set of blades would be?
No, not off the top, mate.
So the reason why I'm asking, and I like that they're interchangeable between like the handheld on the commercial side, because if as a commercial operator, often you'll want several options depending on which type of hedge, because you're doing something low down, you don't want a nice tall thing. Obviously, you want a tall adjustable one for tall hedges. It would be good. I think a lot of operators, it's a smart move to have a spare set of blades just in the ute. If you're halfway through a job and something went wrong, just to have them there to bolt them on, bolt them off, like the hassle to go back or whatever. And the fact that they are available across, just saying the same way that your batteries can be interchanged, it's just, that's handy. Now let's talk about chainsaws.
Yep.
For most people listening to this podcast, they're not tree loppers. And the majority of the work they're going to do is the occasional cutting of a branch that may be the thickness of your arm or maybe the thickness of your leg. The type of people who listen to that, they want to make sure that they can do that. My belief is that just about everything you sell, having seen that chainsaw that we talked about earlier, that my father-in-law has, everything's got to be an upgrade on that from this range, correct?
Yep. So I'm sort of assuming that the one that you bought was probably had a speed of 13 meters per second.
It was
where
it was one of the cheaper ones that you had because it
yeah,
was really just for cutting firewood, not cutting
okay,
down
would have been
trees or
a
anything like that.
14-inch, I think. But
Hmm.
since then we've released a 16 and a 20-inch. The 20-inch and even the 16-inch now is running at 20 meters per second. But it's what's coming thereafter, mate. That's it's going to be faster again. So got to use one when I was in China, and wow, that's all I can say, mate. Is wow, and I'm talking some big timber as well, and seasoned timber. Uh,
Hmm.
just the performance, and of course, like Aussies do, I wanted to stall the hell out of it, and I couldn't. I couldn't. I've
Wow.
been able to on every other chainsaw because I don't know, for some reason we want to lean on it. We don't want the blade to do the work. We want to be able to do the work.
No,
But
yeah, we're in a rush, mate. That's it. Like,
let's put some weight on it. Let's see what it does. But yeah, through testing, I gave it a crack and I couldn't stall it. I could not stall it. And of course, I got people saying, "Baz, let the chain do the work." It's like I'm testing it.
yeah, but we're not like that,
Let,
And
no,
if we're honest, we don't. We know we should sharpen the blade more or the chain more, and we don't. And it's
but
blunt,
do
and we
we?
want to. No, never.
Yeah,
Start a
yeah.
fire with it before we sharpen it. Uh, oh man. So I think it's pretty obvious that even the range that you got is going to cut the stuff that the listeners of this podcast are wanting, because the type of work that most, I would say 70% of this podcast, if they have a chainsaw, of the listeners, they're using it for the occasional, they might have hedge reduction, or they might, somebody's asked them to remove maybe a 2 or 3 meter tall tree.
Or
Nothing.
yuccas. I see that a
Oh,
lot.
okay, yuccas. I
Yuccas.
have at my mother's house a massive yucca that I need
Yeah.
to cut. Right? How is this going to go with that? It sounds like it's probably going to be pretty good. You look confident, at least.
I'm looking confident because I've used one on. I think I had half a dozen in the backyard that I had to clear. Um, and look, I went through a few blades though, right? But
Yeah, sure.
no problem. It just made it quick work. So I just, like anything, you should be wearing safety glasses. So I beat those yuccas down. And that
Vented on them.
was actually on the same unit that I was talking about before. So our opening domestic unit. So, but I guess what we've also done, Luke, is on our 16-inch, we've actually thrown in a 14-inch blade as well.
Oh,
So that way
nice.
it
Yep.
gives you versatility again as to what do you want to use it for. So if you do want to do just some pruning, you got the 14, but if you want to do something bigger, well, you got the 16. Whereas the 18-inch that we've now got out, that's got 20 meters per second, and that's got some grunt behind it, and it's pretty hard to kill it, but it's definitely a powerful unit. But as I said, I mean we're on our, what are we now? We're on our third generation of chainsaws, but our fourth, and even beyond that. Wow, I can't wait.
Do you know, again, I'm probably asking you something that even if you did know, you probably couldn't tell me, but I'm going to push you. When are these things going to come to Australia?
um, when we've finished testing them, suitable for the market. So there's some that we want before others, but some will take more testing to get it right as well. And look, I don't mind telling you a story. When we first launched the brand, we launched with a little 33 centimeter line trimmer, but the market was asking for a 38 centimeter, and the guard at the time was the size of a UFO. We delayed it by 8 months just to get the right size guard before we would launch it in the market. And we don't apologise for doing that. We've established a brand with a DNA that we've got to continually meet, and that'll apply to anything new going forward. So there's a lot of good stuff for next year in the commercial market. There's going to be even better stuff in 25.
There we go. And so, yeah, it's that's what I sense is the excitement in your voice is getting things out. So basically, what you're saying is these things are probably coming in 25. That's Luke's take on it.
Yeah, there's some pretty good stuff happening in 24. And if we can expedite it, we will. So, especially in 24. And let's talk about, I guess, range anxiety and charging anxiety. with the commercial guys. How do I keep my batteries charged throughout the day? And there's been a lot of investment towards inverters, deep cycle battery, solar, and you can spend up
Mhm.
to $5,000 converting
Oh
a
yeah,
trailer
easy.
into a mobile. Well, we're going to have a solution for that next year where you can have DC to DC charging. You can charge up to 96 batteries, whether that be at home or whether that be in your trailer, which is off a 240-volt power. But the DC to DC is going to be a game changer.
Okay, epic. So
Epic.
is this something that was announced at Equip, or is this
Yeah.
still at the background that I'm just
No,
not
no, no.
aware
It
of?
was it was certainly announced at Equip. They had a concept at Equip. But again, we want to expedite that to the Aussie market because we're going to have a commercial mower next year. There it is. It's out. It's just timing. But we want to make sure that the commercial guys that are investing in Ego are able to continually charge on the go without having to invest in converting the trailer or the truck. So you're
Well,
gonna
I
you're
think
gonna have your existing batteries. It's how you charge it.
I want to talk. Let's move on from the commercial range here and talk about where you see things going. Because to be fair, I think we've covered the big. There's a lot more products, just so people are aware. But if they're really interested, they're more like the brush cutters or attachments or even this multi-port charging case that I have in front of me now.
Yeah.
But I've got some things and some ideas and some thoughts because this multi-port charging case, right? One of the things about the battery is you want to keep them cool, right? I'm assuming this is part of it, or you actually want to keep them warm in cold climates, but we're not very cold unless you're on Thredbo or some areas of Tasmania or whatever. But we want to keep our batteries cool, right? I've had a thought. Do you guys do a fridge? Have you ever thought about doing a fridge?
We've thought a lot of things. And yeah, I mean, Australians love four-wheel drive and they love camping, and generally, what's in the back of a four-wheel drive, plugged into 12 volt, is a Waco fridge. So yeah, there's lots of things we've got on the product road.
Well, the reason why I was thinking about it is I was wondering because you lose charge or you lose when it's warm, right? You lose capacity when it's warm. And I was thinking like you could get a sacrificial battery that was running the fridge, right? So you charge a battery to run the fridge and through the day, and it's just an Ego battery fridge because you wouldn't want to necessarily put drinks that were going to spill in there. That's a bad day if you were going to have that happen. But I look at this case and it's got all the holders and the chargers, right? Now, obviously, I'm not talking about charging from a single battery, but I'm just talking about having a case that you put your batteries in that stays. It doesn't even have to be 4 degrees like you would normally have a fridge, but just something that stayed at 17 or something that stayed at 12 or something like that wouldn't take up as much. You could probably run a 10 amp hour on it, and maybe the loss in power from the 10 amp is restored by not losing life off the other batteries. And not, is there something like that could happen? And if so, do I get a commission for that,
No,
coming up with the idea?
a small spotter's fee. Look, everything's possible. I guess what we're talking about with the charging aspect of it for next year, and yeah, it was at Equip. That was a bit of a dream only 2 years ago. So, how quickly technology is progressing, and then where you take that from, like I said, you can charge up to 96 batteries or you can charge up to 14 batteries DC to DC is going to be the option 2 years after the concept. It's pretty cool how it's moving. So everything's possible. But this multi-port charger, look, this was
Mhm.
designed for several reasons. One is to multi-charge. Two was to be able to carry multiple batteries in one case. And
Yeah.
three was to protect and keep the batteries at a good temperature. And we actually did some testing here in Australia. So we did it on I think it was a 25-degree day, and it was a 35 or 20. It was more 28, but a 35-degree day. So we tested two different type of elements, but it kept the batteries a lot cooler, and that was left out in direct sunlight, just like
Yeah.
someone would leave battery in the back of the ute that we've heard many a
Of
time.
course. Oh,
Uh,
all the time.
of course. So, the I've said it many times, the pre-application is more important than anything else when it comes to battery care.
Yes. Yeah.
The ideal temperature for our batteries is 0 to 26, and through our testing, it kept it within that region. Um, so if you've got the batteries at the right temperature pre-application, it means you're going to maximize your runtime, because
Yeah.
as soon as they hit 50 degrees, the phase change starts triggering. That keeps the batteries cooler, but as soon as it hits 70, it shuts down. And that's to protect the battery and as well as the unit. So that's where this comes into it.
Have you ever thought about making a so literally if you had this, right? And again, I want a spotter's fee if this ever comes out. I'm joking, I don't care. It's just these things go through my head because as someone who does a lot of herbicide spraying, I try and store as many of my herbicides in, those little sort of wheel boxes you can get that go under the tray. I put a thermometer on one of them, like I bolted a thermometer to it, just a mercury one, and because I wanted to know what temperature the outside of the box was. And the difference between just being under the tray and on the tray is huge on a 30 plus degree day, because some herbicides get destroyed by temperature just like the batteries do, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if you could, people could custom make this like easily with like four-wheel drive drawers that they have and things like that. But have you ever thought of having like a specifically designed box to go under the tray to store them, and being able to slide it in or slide it out so that, because even if you put this box that is, you're saying it's keeping it colder, could you put that under the tray and still have it? Yeah, that's just the things that are going through my mind.
Yeah. Oh, look, we've thought of many different ways of mobility, storage.
Mm-hmm.
And look, this case itself is pretty tough. So it can take a fair beating, as we tested as well. But we've thought about many different ways of charging, mobility, all of the above. You might see some commercial guys saying, I've got 15 batteries. Well, that's nothing. I've got 20. So, a lot of them have got a lot of batteries. So
It's
there's a bit of comparison going on out there.
exactly, yeah.
We're aware of all that. So, yeah, and I guess that's why we had so much fun in China, bringing the global team together, because we were sharing ideas very similar to yours. It's key. It's key to a brand that's going to get into battery true commercial style, and that's where we're heading.
I do understand as well, like a lot of these things have to be custom. Like you couldn't sell necessarily a universal thing because not every ute is the same, and some people have trucks and the space underneath the tray is different and all that kind of stuff. I've seen like, so aluminium tray. There's a lot of space between the chassis rails underneath the tray, and you can get these drawers that they custom fit under there, and you can bolt them in and stuff, and they come out ages because your tray is 2.4 or something like that, I think it is. But like people, they you can buy these things. Obviously, you can't extend it 2.4 if your trailer's in the way. But they're the kind of things I think of where I'm like, this is where I should be putting herbicides and stuff like that. And I've even considered like if you could get insulation under there and fans that are thermostat, like controlled, run off a battery and just stuff like that, because it's all. But obviously, to make that commercially, again, economies of scale and how much money it would take and all that sort of stuff. So it's just they're the stuff that goes through my brain. Is there anything that you've thought of that you really, really wish you could make it work? And just economies of scale just doesn't. It just isn't viable financially.
Yeah, not really, not from a storage point of view. I guess we've got some priorities. What I wanted yesterday was a 30-inch self-propelled, for argument's sake. So it comes down to really where we need to prioritize our resources. Whilst we've thought of storage, and this is our first example, we are thinking about, well, if you are going to have 15, 20 batteries, how are you going to charge them? So I guess, again, it's the priorities. What does the market really need? And at the moment, they need charging on the go. They need to be able to do that with multiple batteries, though. not just with one or two.
Yeah.
Um, because we globally, we understand that each commercial guy, whilst they may be different, they still need multiple batteries. It's like having multiple jerry cans. It's the same beast.
Yeah,
So
of course.
again, yeah, there's lots of ideas, like stacks of ideas, and I was privy to that over the last couple of weeks, and it just can't happen quick enough.
Well, it sounds to me, what's interesting is it sounds to me like you're feeling heard at least. And maybe
Oh
if
yeah,
I might be reading between the lines here, but it might have been back 8 years ago, maybe the size of the business and the interest in batteries or whatever it was, you might not have been able to say, hey, look, we need this. And they would have gone, well, the market's not very big and this and that. But maybe now starting to turn and I'm definitely, I mean, everyone can hear it in your voice who are listening. There's excitement about 2024, 2025. But yeah, do you feel like now, like there's the Australian market is more respected from, I guess I don't know what you call it, the head office in
yeah.
America and
Well,
China?
yeah. Well, look, we're born in China. We were a private business that's just gone public a couple of years back, and it's basically a family feel. So everyone's heard, everyone can contribute, and everyone's got a voice, and that's what I love about this business. And I've been in US corporate business before, and that's when I have felt like it's like I'm beating the drum, but no one's hearing it. Um, and I think it happened really early when we went to the business and said commercial wants anti-clockwise. They listened and they produced, not just for us in Oz and New Zealand, but they did it everywhere around the world. They started listening to the commercial markets like shit. We've got to turn this clockwise into anti-clockwise, and we've
Mm.
now got to think about the next steps. So yeah, I think we've always had a voice, mate, and I think being involved in pages like LMCA, again, it's learning it, and it's taking that back to the business, and whether it's a 30-inch or a 32-inch stander, or it's a 52 fab deck. Well, even the fab deck, it's like we've got to have it for the commercial market. So, yep, we're always heard. Doesn't matter, the size of our market. It's important for the brand globally to get it right commercially.
I want to tell you some stories from behind the scenes of what it's been like organising this podcast series. And the reason is that you're talking about the listening, and I've experienced that with the different brands I've tried to talk to. Because for those who are listening as well, there is this thing where the bigger the business, the harder it has been to organise the podcast because of the layers of communication I needed to go through. And you talk to this marketing person and they go, oh, well, I'd love to be a part, but this is not my field. I'll pass you on to them. And they go, well, I'm in marketing, but I don't know much about the product. So I'll pass you on to this guy, and this person's on holiday, so they have to find somebody else. And the brand's keen to be involved, but it's so hard to get ultimately too. I'm not going to name any brands because it's not the people's fault or anything like that. When I reached out to you, you guys were one of the first brands, right? And it was like, what was it? Email back, quick phone call, like chucking the date. You said, I'm going to China. I'd love to chat when I come back. And if you remember, I said to you, I want to have these out by a certain time frame. And you were like, oh, well, I couldn't, how about this date, right? I don't know if you remember this part of the phone call. I haven't, as the point of when we're recording this, the first episode will come out tomorrow. So as you know, I wanted these out earlier, right? And the reality is, it's been for many brands just a longer period, and I gave them weeks and weeks and weeks, like 6 weeks for some of them. And the point I'm trying to get across is that we shouldn't take for granted. I'm trying to advocate for how difficult it is for brands to get, like, that's what I'm saying about the injection mold being 70,000 for a single part of a product, or how much return on investment needs to come into mind. And then the layers of communication it takes just to organize a essentially 2-hour-long phone call or video call. You know what I mean? It's great for those who are listening. I'm not being paid by this at all, and everybody knows that. There's no brand I'm charging, there's nothing. But there is something to be said by how easy it is to organize, and certain brands, and you're one of them, were very easy. And that gives me at least a feel that it would also be easy to come with a request and at least be heard, whether or not you were agreed with or whether or not there was viable to fulfill your request. So I mean, props for that. And I guess that's the stuff that we're talking about with LMCA and being involved before, you know?
Yeah, look, I appreciate that. But I guess we're still a young business. We're still learning. I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, 20 years of power tools. That was sort of secondary to OPE, but now we set up a business that the core was OPE. So I knew a lot of the market, I knew a lot of the product, but still brand new business, brand new brand new team, and we have to learn. We don't know it all. So, there's no hidden secrets why we're on LMCA. We want to learn, we want to support, we want to provide, and speed to market is key. We've got to listen. Speed to market and everything we do is key. So that will not change as far as I'm concerned. It's been a great journey to learn it and then to see what we've delivered in the commercial product, and a lot of that is because of what we've gone back to the business. And it's like, you need to increase your blade speed. You need to do it
Yep.
anti-clockwise. You need to take weight out. We need battery on board. We need a commercial mower. It doesn't matter
Is
what
it
size.
frustrating? Is it frustrating to go through the whole process of getting a product just to find out there's a 1%er you missed? There's a 1%er that's holding the whole thing up. 99% is great, and it's just, it doesn't spin the right way. Like, the machine is perfect. It spins the wrong way. How
Yeah.
frustrating is that?
Well, I guess that feedback came from a residential unit though, right? So it
Hmm.
was being used by a commercial guy, and he goes, "It's spinning the wrong way." And it's like, "Well, what do you mean it's spinning the wrong way? It's spinning the right way." So, but we learned the market wants anti-clockwise. So, we got the founder of the business involved, and we were able to take that from idea to 3 months, and we launched it really quickly. And it's an ST 1530, and I know there's some guys out there that have been. And when I say guys, I do refer to both male and
Yeah,
female.
yeah, we know. You
So
sexist pig.
yeah,
Can't
never,
believe you. No, I
yeah,
just.
never. But we know that the market is still using that today, because it was delivering the power, it was going the right way, it had the right weight, it had the right performance. So I guess that was back to what I was saying before, Luke. Is we're not going to rush to market until we've done the right testing and we have got everything right. And even the last couple of weeks, we spoke about trimmer heads, because we know that your market wants the line as close to the base of the trimmer head as possible,
Yep.
and we've been able to achieve that. It's been a pretty good improvement on the new commercial series, but then we looked at other different ideas of what we can produce as well. So they're listening. They're listening. We might have the same land mass as the US and Europe with lesser people, but we're just as important as a global brand.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you not personal question, a personal opinion question, right? And it's maybe a little bit unfair. So
Right.
you'll have to forgive me on it. But
Without notice, okay.
without notice, no notice, it just comes to mind. But I think you're honest enough that we've already talked about enough of this. But what product do you look back on? Maybe it's something you've updated now that you think that was a bit of a dud, and that was disappointing, or that was the one that we always got feedback from. Because I've got the other side of the question coming soon too, but it's interesting. Most brands would never talk about that because it's unprofessional, but it's real. And
Yeah.
maybe that was a bit of the reason why I ask is not just for the clicks or to get controversy, but a lot of people may have been turned off a certain brand because there was a product that the people in the brand realized they made a mistake from, but you can't say it out loud.
Yeah. And look, I'm an honest type of guy. Look, I there's nothing that comes to mind, because I think what you got to do is put this in perspective. We're a brand that's turning 10 years this year. Um, Everything that we've done has been first to market. So there's been a lot of learning. But that learning has then developed a second generation where we've continually improved it. And then there's a third and fourth. And again, we had 3 self-propelleds in the market before we've seen our first battery competitor come to market with a self-propelled. So there's look very early. We brought out some line trimmers that were 33 centimeter, but it was a domestic market. It was a price point because we were a higher voltage. It had a premium price to it, so we had to try and make it affordable. But there's nothing that I know. I'm looking around the room. There's nothing that comes to mind, mate, that we called it a dud. It's been part of our journey of building a brand and trying to meet market expectations. I think that's the beauty of Servon is we're full vertical integration. So everything you see in Ego, apart from Samsung cells or Oregon Bar and Chain, it's all our baby. 100% R&D, produced, manufactured. It's our baby. We're not buying off the shelf, and I think we have a high expectation, and we don't launch stuff until we're happy with it. Back to my example of the UFO guard on the line trimmer.
Yeah.
There's no
Is there anything that that was attempted to be brought over, and in your testing you were like, this is not going to work for our market, right? Just anything that you were just like, maybe it was a hit in America and you come here and it's just like, it just doesn't work here. Nothing that comes to mind.
Look, if there was anything that I had to drive some form of negativity on, it's not having a battery on board in 2018 for commercial.
Right. And you've moved on from that already. So there you go.
Exactly. So, but again, the amount of backpacks we've sold at the price where they were, it's like there's still a market there for it. So
people are still, it's just not for everybody kind of thing.
No, that's right. But, then we heard the market and it's like, look, it's too heavy. I don't want to have it on my back. I don't want to interchange, all that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, so we brought out the backpack link. So all the batteries you can use on any other product, you can put it on your back, take the weight out of the tool, and that becomes another option in the way that you power your unit. Yep. So, and especially with hedge trimmers, right? Generally you're using them, at a height that they do become heavy over time. Well, if we can take 1.5 kilos or 3.5 kilos out of it and put it on your back, who's going to be better for it?
Well, I've got one more question for you, mate, and I've been meaning to ask this of everybody, and I have forgotten a couple. So, forgive me, people. Let's say it's hypothetical, okay? Let's say that in all the Ego factories in the world, right, there is some fire that's going to happen, and it happens to be that a genie comes to you and says, "This fire is going to happen, but I grant you one wish that you can protect." The batteries are fine; the batteries will stay fine. You can protect one tool and you can keep it in circulation maybe for 2 years because of the fires. There'll be never an Ego product sold except for this one tool, and you have the power to save the one tool. What tool would you save?
Wow, that's a deep question. So what about if I've got two arms? Can I save two products?
You'll have to ask the genie that. No, I've got to keep it to one.
Yeah. Okay. It would be a product we haven't released yet.
Oh, okay. Is it a deep fryer for my Zinger boxes? Is that what the...
No, look, we've produced a lot of good product, a lot of innovation, a lot of industry firsts. The one product that I think is going to... we're already, without sounding arrogant, we've been able to establish a new brand fairly quickly over the last 10 years, but I think the product that's going to help us to propel into that commercial market is going to be next year's commercial mower. And I reckon that's the baby. That's the baby I would save. I think it's the missing piece in our arsenal right now for true commercial. And I'm excited by true commercial because it's a big market. I enjoy the market, the parochialism and the banter and everything else. And that's why I enjoy living on LMCA and all the other pages that I'm on as well. I think it's going to be a pretty cool market for us going forward.
I think that's a perfect way.
And especially what's beyond that too, Luke, which I keep alluding to.
All right. Well, you can tell me everything off air, and I'll just share my spirit.
Well, let's just say we're going to be meeting market expectations. It's just all about time and getting the product right.
Right, and cash money probably, because that's what businesses are based on. You got to have something profitable. Look,
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to end the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. And that was an hour and 42 minutes, and in my opinion, it went pretty quickly. I don't know how you felt.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I had a bit of fun. It was good having a chat. I appreciate the opportunity. Rip a podcast, mate, and I think your idea of bringing all the brands together for the benefit of your industry mates, I think it's a great idea, mate. So well done on that.
And I love everybody here who's been a part of it in this one as well. Like we have never talked down about any other bit of kit. We're never talking about rubbishing anybody else. Nobody's. I've enjoyed it, and I think it's going to be a great service to people. But everyone, if you've been interested and inspired or even intrigued, I don't know what other I word I could put into this, but if you're liking what's going on with this, jump on the egopowerplus.com.au, probably /commercial series, but you'll find it on the internet. Just Google things and have a look into the stuff, see who's around. And thank you so much for coming on, mate. And everyone, we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thanks, mate.